Episode of Classroom Crimes. We have a very special edition. Is it magic or is it crime? This episode, we will discuss the motives, evidence, victims' predictions, suspects, crime scene, conclusions, and justice. All of this and more on today's episode of Classroom Crimes.
Liz had been hired by her neighbors, the Jeffersons, to take care of her dog Magic while they were on vacation. She didn't know how much Magic cost, but she knew he was a very expensive dog. Magic was a purebred Afghan. The only reason the Jeffersons did not take Magic with them on their vacation was because he had been sick. But Liz had proven herself to be very responsible. Whenever a family needed help, they hired Liz Lincoln. When she reached the Jeffersons' back door, she realized the spare key she had been using to get in was still in the lock. She wondered how in the world she could have left it in the door when she was there earlier that day. Liz had come a little earlier than she normally did. Usually she did an afternoon check on Magic around 1 p.m. each day, but she was planning on meeting her friend, so today's Magic check was about 45 minutes early. Liz opened the back door into the kitchen and stepped in a very small puddle. Magic must have had an accident. He had been sick because of problems with his kidneys, problems that meant he would need some expensive surgery in the near future. Liz carefully entered the kitchen, being careful not to step in the puddle again. She called Magic downstairs, but before she could say anything else, Liz heard a thud upstairs, like something had been knocked over. She was starting to feel a little nervous, so she called Magic down one more time. Magic came down the stairs. He seemed fine, but Liz didn't want to take any chances with the sound that she had heard upstairs, so she called her father over. While she waited for her dad to come over, Liz took Magic outside. She wanted to let him do his thing so she could clean her shoes off as quickly as possible. Magic went to the bathroom immediately, and Liz thought it was funny that he could have had that accident in the kitchen and then gone so immediately. Liz's father came over while she and Magic were still outside. She called him over to check things out upstairs. And then Liz realized that Magic's vet might want to see a sample of the accident. Liz collected a little bit of it using a paper towel and put that towel in a zip-top bag, and she wiped up the rest to put it in the trash. As she was about to throw away the dirty paper towels, Liz noticed a single piece of paper in the trash can. The Jeffersons took out the trash before they left, and Liz knew that for sure she hadn't thrown anything away. She pulled out the piece of paper and tossed in the paper towels. The paper was from the desk of Sally Jefferson, and it had the words, "I have taken," written on it. Liz just assumed that Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson had started writing something before they had left and after they'd taken the trash out. So she put it in her pocket and took it home to be recycled. Liz's father came back downstairs and announced that the noise she had heard was just a plant being knocked over. Nothing else seemed to be out of place. Liz and her father left, making sure the key was back in its hiding place. Liz hadn't wanted to leave the mall so early, but with all the strange events that had been happening that day, she didn't want any more accidents to happen. Liz walked into the Jeffersons' house and called Magic down and said it was time to eat. There was no response. Suddenly, Liz was alarmed. She continued to call out his name while she walked around the house. She went upstairs, nothing. He wasn't on his bed, he wasn't anywhere. There had to be an explanation. And there was. A note she hadn't noticed at first was on the kitchen table. Typed in large font, the note said, "We have taken your dog. We will keep him unless you pay us ransom money. If you accept our conditions and pay the money, he will be fine." The first thing Liz did was call her parents over. Her parents immediately offered to call the Jeffersons and then the police, but Liz promptly told them that she had to do this because she was the one watching Magic. Sally Jefferson was stunned. "We'll pay them whatever they want." Then Mrs. Jefferson remembered how frugal her husband was. First, the news of the expensive operation, now a ransom payment. He's not going to be happy about having to spend more money on that mutt, as he sometimes calls my precious Magic. "Hal's playing golf right now, but, I can't reach him. He turns off his cell phone so no one can disturb him." Mrs. Jefferson was a little embarrassed by the fact she was unable to immediately get in touch with her husband. Was she worried that he wouldn't pay the ransom? Liz and her parents called the police soon afterwards. Detective Bernie Woodward was in charge of the investigation. 4 days ago, I started looking after magic. Liz impressed Detective Woodward with her detailed description. She saw Otis Nixon coming up across the yard from his house next door. The way he is, Liz thought, he'll probably step right on an anthill and never realize it. Liz didn't really like Otis. Melinda Johnson was their other neighbor. She was Liz's age, and Liz suspected that Melinda was jealous of her status in the neighborhood and the money that came with it. "What's going on?" Otis asked everybody. "Where's Magic?" "Interesting you should ask. It appears that he's been stolen. Do you know anything about that?" Detective Woodward said. "Me? No, of course not," Otis answered. Otis was something like 25 years old and living with his parents. "There was a white van, you know, one of those vans without any windows in the back, one of those rental vans. It just seemed a little out of place." By the time the Jeffersons returned home, Detective Woodward had canvassed the neighborhood for any possible eyewitnesses. Other than Otis, no one reported seeing anything suspicious. There was no sign of forced entry, and Liz had touched the key most recently, so her prints were on it. To solve this crime, we're going to look at who has the means to commit the crime, who has the motive to commit the crime, and what evidence can we gather from the crime scene.
You think I would steal magic? I would never steal magic. Even though I don't like Liz because she always gets all the jobs, I would have messed it up for her. The person you want to look at is Otis
I'm
Nixon.
trying to watch TV. The person you want to look at is Howard Jefferson.
Sure, I didn't want to pay so much for the stupid dog, but I didn't want to upset my wife.
Why would I steal my dog? He was my pride and joy. I would never take magic.
Liz collected 3 vital pieces of evidence that would be invaluable in this investigation.
This was the ransom note collected after magic was stolen. Due to lack of resources, we were not able to conduct any tests on it at the moment. This is the substance that Liz collected from the kitchen that she thought was Magic's accident. After several pH tests, we had determined that it has a pH of 6 or 7, similar to urine, milk, pure water, or human blood. This is the note that Liz picked up from the trash can, and after a chromatography test, we have decided that this note was written in vis-a-vis marker, and our handwriting analysis was conclusive to our criminal.
After a long, hard investigation, we have deduced that Hal Jefferson is the criminal. After a long, exciting episode, we have found the classroom criminal, and justice has been served.